boy grew up in a small town, where life was simple and quiet. He lived with his parents and a younger sibling. Money was always tight, but the boy had big dreams. He loved watching people start businesses and make ideas grow into something the world could notice. From a young age, he imagined himself doing something important, something that could change his life and help his family. He spent hours reading books about famous inventors, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Each story gave him hope and courage, and he often thought about what he could do if he worked hard enough. At school, the boy was not the most popular. He wasn't the fastest runner, the best student, or the most talented in any sport. But he had something else that made him special, an idea that kept growing in his mind. It was a simple idea at first, but he saw its potential to solve a problem people faced every day. He sketched, wrote, and drew plans in his notebook during every free moment. Sometimes he stayed awake late into the night, thinking about what steps he needed to take to make his dream real. His parents watched him quietly, proud of his determination but also worried about the risks. One day, the boy heard about a chance to present his idea to investors in the city. It was an opportunity that could change everything. He felt nervous, his stomach full of butterflies, but also excited. He prepared carefully, making notes, practicing speeches in front of the mirror, and imagining how he would answer tough questions. He wanted to make sure everything was perfect. He even borrowed a suit for the occasion, knowing that appearances mattered, even more than he liked. On the day of the presentation, he walked into the room where several investors were waiting. One of them was a millionaire, a person known for being tough and straightforward. The millionaire had invested in many successful businesses but was also famous for being critical of new ideas. The boy stood in front of the group, his hands slightly shaking, his heart racing. He started to explain his idea clearly and passionately, showing how it could help people and why it was different from anything else on the market. He answered questions politely and tried to stay calm, even when the millionaire asked sharp questions. After the presentation, there was a pause. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, looking at the boy with a critical eye. Then, in front of everyone, he said something that shocked the boy. He said the boy's idea would fail and warned others not to invest. The words felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on the boy's chest. He could see some investors frowning, unsure what to do. The boy's cheeks burned with embarrassment and anger, but more than that, he felt a deep disappointment. He had worked so hard, dreamed so much, and now it felt like all his effort was being dismissed with a single sentence. The boy walked out of the room feeling a mix of emotions. He was sad, angry, and frustrated, but he also felt something else, a spark. The words of the millionaire didn't just hurt, they made him think. If this person, someone so successful and experienced, thought he would fail, maybe it meant he had something to prove. Maybe this was the moment he needed to show the world that hard work, creativity, and determination could beat doubt. He didn't let the millionaire's words stop him. Instead, he decided he would work even harder, learn even more, and take steps that would eventually show the millionaire and everyone else that they had underestimated him. Back home, the boy sat at his small desk in his room, opening his notebook. He reread his plans, checking every detail, thinking about what he could improve. He made new lists, new ideas, new strategies. He stayed up late into the night, fueled by a mix of determination and a desire to prove himself. His parents watched him quietly, unsure if he could manage such a big challenge. But they knew he had a fire inside him that couldn't be ignored. They offered small words of encouragement, telling him to keep going and reminding him that mistakes were part of learning. The boy began to take small steps every day. He found local suppliers for materials he needed, learned about marketing from online videos, and even started talking to people who might buy his product. He faced many challenges. Sometimes things didn't work, sometimes people laughed at him, and sometimes he felt completely exhausted. But every small success, every kind word, every positive response pushed him forward. He learned to be patient, to keep trying, and to accept that failure might happen but it wouldn't be the end. In school, some classmates started noticing his dedication. They saw him staying late after classes, working on his prototype, talking to adults about business, and never giving up. Some began to admire him, others were skeptical. But the boy didn't care about what others thought. He cared about his goal, about the idea that had come from his heart and mind. He remembered the millionaire's words, not as an insult, but as a challenge. Each time he felt tired or discouraged, he repeated to himself that he would not let the world decide his limits. Weeks passed and the boy made progress. He created a small version of his product and showed it to a few local people. They liked it. They offered suggestions and he listened carefully, adjusting and improving his work. Slowly, he began to see that his idea could actually become real, that it could help people and maybe even succeed in ways he had never imagined. He felt excitement mixed with nervousness, but he kept moving forward, step by step. At home, his family started to get involved. His younger sibling helped with small tasks, his parents offered advice and support, and even the neighbors began to take an interest. The boy realized that he wasn't alone in his journey, that even though the millionaire had doubted him, there were people around him who believed in his effort and determination. That gave him strength and courage. He also learned that success was not just about money or fame, but about building something meaningful and making a difference in people's lives. Even though he faced moments of doubt, the boy's determination never faded. Every morning, he reminded himself why he started. Every night, he reflected on what he had learned. He understood that the path ahead would not be easy, that mistakes and failures were part of the journey, but he was ready. He was ready to prove that the words of one powerful person could not define his future. He believed in his idea, in his hard work, and in the power of persistence. By the end of this part of his journey, the boy had taken the first important steps. He had faced doubt, disappointment, and criticism, but he had not given up. Instead, he had found motivation in the challenge and had begun building the foundation for something greater. He didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. He would not let anyone's disbelief stop him from reaching his dream. He had learned that courage, determination, and faith in oneself were stronger than fear, doubt, and criticism. The boy's journey had only just begun, but the first chapter had already shown his heart, mind, and spirit ready to face whatever came next. The boy's journey had only just begun, but he had already learned that the path to success was full of challenges. After the harsh words from the millionaire, he felt a mixture of determination and fear. The fear wasn't about failing in general. It was the fear that he might not live up to his own dreams. Every day, he woke up thinking about the work ahead, knowing that he had to keep moving forward even when the world seemed to doubt him. He started by setting small goals for himself. Every morning, he wrote down what he wanted to achieve that day. Sometimes it was simply figuring out a part of his product, sometimes it was talking to a potential customer, and other times it was researching ways to make his idea better. He understood that big dreams were achieved one small step at a time. Slowly, he began to create routines, making the process feel less overwhelming. Each completed task gave him a sense of accomplishment, no matter how minor it seemed. The boy faced early struggles that tested his patience. Materials he needed were expensive or hard to find. People he approached for advice or help often dismissed him. Friends sometimes laughed at the long hours he spent working, saying he was wasting his time on something that would never succeed. Even his own family worried for him, suggesting he focus on more stable options. But the boy refused to give up. He reminded himself that every challenge was a lesson. When something went wrong, he wrote it down, thought about it, and tried again in a better way. He learned to be creative with limited resources. Without much money, he had to figure out how to make his product work using inexpensive materials. He experimented, tested, and sometimes failed, but each failure taught him something new. One evening, after hours of trying a new approach, he finally saw a small success. A part of his idea started to work as he had imagined. His heart raced with excitement. It was a tiny victory, but to him it felt enormous. It was proof that persistence could pay off. The boy also learned to listen carefully. He showed his product to neighbors, local shopkeepers, and friends, asking for honest feedback. Some people didn't understand it at first, some were skeptical, and some were genuinely supportive. He learned to separate helpful criticism from negativity. Every suggestion that helped improve his product was noted, and he adjusted his approach accordingly. Listening became one of his most important skills. He realized that he didn't need to please everyone. He only needed to focus on the people who believed in his idea and could help him grow. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The boy's hard work slowly began to show results. He managed to produce a small batch of his product and approached local markets and small shops to sell it. At first, sales were slow. People were unsure about something new. But the boy didn't get discouraged. He spoke to potential customers with honesty and passion, explaining why his product could help them. Some people listened, tried it, and returned with positive words. These first small successes felt like proof that his idea could truly work. Along the way, the boy met a mentor. An older man, experienced in business and friendly in nature, noticed his effort and dedication. The mentor didn't promise overnight success, but he offered guidance, advice, and encouragement. The mentor helped the boy understand how to organize his work, manage money, and reach more people. He shared stories of his own struggles when he was young, showing the boy that setbacks were normal and that learning from mistakes was what separated winners from quitters. The boy listened carefully, soaking in every piece of advice and applying it to his work. The boy's daily life became a careful balance of work, school, and family. He often stayed up late at night, checking and rechecking details. He learned to handle frustration without losing focus. When things didn't go as planned, he took deep breaths, reminded himself why he was doing it, and tried again. He learned that patience was as important as hard work. Progress might be slow, but it was still progress. While he was building his business, the boy also developed resilience. He faced criticism from peers who didn't believe in him and strangers who doubted his ability. Each time, he reminded himself that people's opinions didn't define his potential. He understood that persistence meant continuing even when nobody believed in him. He began to feel proud of his efforts, not because of recognition, but because he knew he was giving his best. That pride became his fuel, pushing him to take bigger steps every day. In the community, some people started noticing his effort. Word spread that a young boy was working tirelessly on an unusual idea. Some people were curious, some were skeptical, but slowly, a few began to support him. They helped by offering advice, small loans, or introducing him to other people who could help. The boy learned the importance of building relationships, treating people with respect, and showing gratitude. He understood that success wasn't just about the idea, it was about the connections and trust he built along the way. One of the most important lessons the boy learned during this time was self-belief. Every time he encountered a failure, he reminded himself of his goals. Every time he felt tired, he remembered why he started. He realized that believing in himself, even when others didn't, was the key to moving forward. It wasn't easy, and some nights he cried in frustration, but every morning he woke up ready to face challenges again. As months passed, the boy began to see a small but steady change. His product started to reach more people. He received encouraging messages from customers who liked his work. Even small praise from strangers gave him confidence. The boy realized that every little step mattered. He also began to dream bigger, thinking not just about local markets, but about reaching the city and even beyond. The thought of growth gave him energy and motivation. The boy also discovered the importance of adapting. Sometimes what worked at the beginning didn't work anymore. Customers wanted improvements and competitors had new ideas. He learned to be flexible, to change his strategies without losing sight of his main goal. Adaptability became another tool in his growing skill set. He understood that success wasn't about being rigid. It was about learning, adjusting, and moving forward with creativity. Even though the millionaire had said he would flop, the boy's belief in his idea never faded. In fact, it grew stronger. Every success, no matter how small, was proof that he could make a difference. The boy began to see that doubt could be a motivator, not a limit. It reminded him that he was capable of more than people expected. He took the millionaire's words not as an insult but as a challenge, and he worked harder to meet it. By the end of this part of his journey, the boy had made remarkable progress. He had overcome initial failures, built relationships, gained mentorship, and started selling his product successfully. He was no longer just a boy with a dream. He was becoming a young entrepreneur who understood the value of hard work, patience, and persistence. Every challenge he faced had taught him something new, and every small victory had strengthened his confidence. The boy knew the path ahead was still long, but he had already learned that determination, learning from mistakes, and believing in himself could overcome even the harshest doubts. The future was uncertain, but he felt ready to face it, step by step, with courage and hope. The boy had been working for months, facing countless challenges and learning from every mistake. His small successes were beginning to grow into something bigger. The local community started to notice his persistence and creativity. Some people still doubted him, but a small group of supporters began to believe in his idea and were willing to help. He had learned to appreciate even the smallest encouragement, as it reminded him that he was moving in the right direction. One morning, he woke up with a new energy. He realized that he needed a breakthrough to take his idea to the next level. His product was good, but he knew it could be better. He spent the day thinking about ways to improve it. He experimented with materials, designs, and techniques, trying new combinations and solutions. Hours passed, and there were moments of frustration when nothing seemed to work. But he remembered all the lessons he had learned. Persistence, patience, and creativity were his strongest tools. Finally, late in the evening, he found a new approach that made his product much more effective and appealing. His heart filled with excitement, and he could hardly wait to share it with the world. With this new version, the boy approached local shops, markets, and small businesses again. This time, people were curious and willing to give it a try. The first few sales went well, and positive feedback started to come in. Customers praised the quality and usefulness of his product. For the first time, he began to feel that his hard work was truly paying off. The boy was careful not to become overconfident. He knew that consistency and continued effort were key. He listened carefully to feedback and made small improvements where necessary. Each satisfied customer became a stepping stone for the next level of success. News about the boy's product began to spread beyond the small community. A local newspaper wrote a small article about him, highlighting his determination and creative solution. Suddenly, more people were interested. Some offered to invest small amounts to help him grow, while others shared his story with friends and family. The boy was amazed by the ripple effect of his hard work. It showed him that persistence, honesty, and dedication could attract attention even without large marketing budgets. His journey was starting to inspire others, and that motivated him to push further. The boy's mentor noticed the progress and suggested a bold step, attending a larger city fair where businesses showcased their products. It was an opportunity to reach more people, get bigger clients, and perhaps even catch the attention of investors who could help scale his idea. The boy felt nervous, knowing the competition would be much tougher, but he also realized that growth required taking risks. He prepared for weeks, perfecting his presentation, ensuring his product worked flawlessly, and practicing how he would explain it to strangers and potential clients. Every detail mattered. On the day of the fair, the boy arrived early. The city was bustling with energy, and there were many young and experienced entrepreneurs showcasing their ideas. Some had flashy displays, large teams, and professional marketing. The boy felt a wave of nervousness, wondering if his small effort could even stand out. But he reminded himself that his work had value. Confidence, he realized, was not about being the biggest or loudest. It was about believing in what you have created and presenting it with honesty and passion. As the fair began, many people passed by his small stand without stopping. But he greeted each person warmly, explained his product patiently, and demonstrated how it could help them. Slowly, a crowd began to gather. People were curious, asking questions, and even taking notes. A few small orders came in and word started to spread. The boy felt his excitement grow. This was his chance to prove that dedication and creativity could compete with bigger, more established businesses. During the fair, an important moment arrived. A well-known investor approached his stand, curious about the young entrepreneur who had been talked about in the local newspaper. The boy greeted him respectfully and explained his product, highlighting the improvements and how it solved a problem. The investor asked challenging questions, testing his knowledge and understanding of the market. The boy answered carefully, demonstrating not only his product but also the effort, research, and thought behind it. The investor nodded, clearly impressed by the boy's dedication and knowledge. By the end of the fair, the boy had made more sales than he had ever imagined. He had attracted attention from potential partners and investors who saw the potential in his idea. It was a major breakthrough. For the first time, he felt that his dream could truly reach a larger audience. The boy understood that hard work, learning from mistakes, and persistence had brought him to this point. The long hours, sacrifices, and challenges had all contributed to this moment of success. Returning home, the boy shared the news with his family. They were overjoyed, proud not only of his success but also of the perseverance and determination he had shown. His younger sibling listened eagerly, inspired by the idea that dreams could come true with effort and patience. The boy reflected on how far he had come since the day the millionaire dismissed him. He realized that the journey itself, filled with learning, struggle, and growth, was as valuable as the success he was starting to achieve. The next weeks were filled with new opportunities. He received invitations to speak at small events, talk about his journey, and share advice with other young people who wanted to pursue their own dreams. The boy discovered that sharing his experience was not only rewarding, but also reinforced his confidence and sense of purpose. Every time he spoke about his challenges, failures, and small victories, he inspired others while reminding himself of the lessons he had learned. The boy also began thinking about the future. He knew he needed to plan for growth carefully. Expanding too fast could risk his reputation and quality, while moving too slowly could mean missing opportunities. He developed a clear strategy, focusing on maintaining quality, building relationships with clients, and gradually reaching new markets. The boy understood that real success required balance, planning, and continuous effort. He was learning not just how to create a product but also how to build a sustainable business. Amid all the success, the boy never forgot the millionaire's words. Instead of feeling resentment, he felt motivated. The doubt had fueled his determination, reminding him that obstacles and criticism were part of any journey worth pursuing. He learned to use skepticism from others as a driving force, turning negativity into energy to push harder. This mindset became a defining part of his character, helping him face challenges with courage and resilience. The breakthrough also taught the boy about the importance of community and teamwork. Though he had started alone, he realized that every small success involved people who believed in him, advised him, or supported him in small ways. Whether it was a mentor's guidance, a neighbor's encouragement, or a customer's feedback, these contributions helped shape his journey. The boy became more attentive, respectful, and grateful to those around him. He knew that collaboration, trust, and shared effort were essential for lasting success. By the end of the stage, the boy had transformed from a dreamer struggling with doubt into a young entrepreneur experiencing tangible success. His product was improving, his audience was growing, and his confidence had increased. He had discovered the power of persistence, creativity, and adaptability. More importantly, he had learned that setbacks were temporary and that belief in oneself could overcome even the harshest criticism. The boy's journey had entered a new chapter, filled with opportunities, challenges, and the promise of greater achievements. He had taken the first major leap, and the world was beginning to take notice. The boy's success had begun to attract attention from many directions. News outlets mentioned him in small stories, local entrepreneurs shared his journey, and more customers were showing interest in his product. Even though he had achieved a breakthrough, he felt that this was only the beginning. He understood that to grow further, he had to face challenges on a larger scale. One day, he received an unexpected message. The millionaire who had doubted him months ago was attending the city's business event and was interested in seeing some of the young innovators in the area. The boy felt a mix of anxiety and curiosity. He remembered the words that had stung so much when first spoken, and he wondered what the millionaire would think now. At the event, the boy set up a small but organized display of his product. He made sure everything was presented clearly and professionally, knowing that first impressions mattered. People walked by, some stopped, some asked questions, and a few offered words of encouragement. The boy felt the familiar mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had learned to handle public attention, but the thought of facing the millionaire again made his stomach tighten. Finally, the moment arrived. The millionaire approached, flanked by assistants and photographers. He looked at the boy with curiosity, and perhaps a trace of skepticism. The boy greeted him politely, explaining the improvements he had made, the growth of his business, and the feedback from customers. He spoke with confidence but stayed humble, showing that he valued honesty and transparency over exaggeration or bragging. The millionaire asked questions, testing not just the product but also the boy's understanding of the business. He inquired about challenges, failures, and lessons learned along the way. The boy answered carefully, describing the setbacks he had faced, the nights of hard work, and the small victories that had kept him moving forward. He emphasized that persistence, learning from mistakes, and listening to feedback had been the keys to his growth. The millionaire's expression shifted slightly as he listened, from skepticism to interest, and perhaps even admiration. During the conversation, the boy realized that the millionaire was not just judging the product, but the person behind it. He understood that character, dedication, and the ability to grow through challenges mattered more than a single idea. This insight gave him confidence. He spoke openly about his journey, the lessons learned, and the vision for the future. He highlighted how the initial doubt had motivated him to work harder and stay focused. The boy realized that the story he was telling was as important as the product itself. After a long discussion, the millionaire finally nodded. There was a brief moment of silence before he said something unexpected. He acknowledged the boy's determination and the progress he had made. The words were simple but powerful. The boy felt a wave of relief and pride. He did not feel the need to celebrate excessively. Instead, he quietly understood that he had faced a challenge, proven his ability, and gained respect. The recognition was meaningful not because it came from a wealthy and influential figure, but because it validated the effort, learning, and resilience he had shown. The event continued, and many people approached the boy to see his product. He was invited to speak briefly about his journey and the lessons he had learned. Standing on the small stage, he shared his story in a way that was relatable and honest. He spoke about failure, doubt, persistence, and the importance of believing in oneself. The audience listened, some nodding in agreement, others taking notes. The boy felt a sense of purpose. He realized that success was not just about personal achievement, but also about inspiring and helping others to pursue their own dreams. After the event, the boy's reputation grew even more. Investors, small business owners, and curious individuals reached out to him. He was offered partnerships, collaborations, and opportunities to expand his product to new markets. He understood that the path forward required careful planning and responsibility. The boy did not rush into decisions. He evaluated each opportunity, ensuring that it aligned with his values and long-term vision. The millionaire's acknowledgement had opened doors, but the boy knew that continued effort, honesty, and quality would sustain his growth. Back home, the boy reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the early days of doubt, the long hours of work, the failures, and the small successes that had kept him moving forward. He understood that each experience, positive or negative, had shaped him. The initial criticism from the millionaire, which had once felt crushing, had become a source of motivation and clarity. He realized that challenges and skepticism were not obstacles but opportunities to grow stronger. The boy's family celebrated his achievements quietly. They were proud not just of his business success but also of the resilience, patience, and character he had developed. His younger sibling listened with admiration, inspired by the story of persistence and courage. The boy realized that personal growth and the impact on others were as meaningful as financial or professional success. He felt grateful for the support, guidance, and encouragement he had received from family, friends, mentors, and even the community. In the days that followed, the boy continued to build his business. He expanded production carefully, ensuring that quality remained high. He hired a few trusted helpers and taught them the values he held dear: honesty, hard work, and dedication. The The boy understood that leadership was not just about giving orders but about guiding, inspiring, and supporting others. He made sure that every decision reflected his commitment to integrity and the long-term vision he had nurtured from the start. The millionaire's acknowledgement had taught him an important lesson. Respect is earned through consistent effort, learning, and resilience. It was not about impressing people with flashy words or appearances, but about showing true dedication and results. The boy felt more confident and mature, ready to face larger challenges, and to continue growing his business responsibly. The boy also realized that sharing his journey could inspire others. He began visiting schools and local communities to speak about the importance of perseverance, creativity, and self-belief. Children, teenagers, and even adults listened eagerly, asking questions and seeking advice. The boy found joy in helping others understand that dreams could be pursued with effort and dedication. This became a meaningful part of his journey. He discovered that personal success was even more rewarding when it could inspire and guide others. Through all of this, the boy maintained a humble perspective. He understood that success was a journey, not a destination. Each achievement was a step toward larger goals, and every challenge was a chance to grow. He remained focused on improving his product, serving his customers, and nurturing the relationships that supported his growth. He continued to learn from every experience, knowing that continuous improvement was essential for lasting success. By the end of this stage in his journey, the boy had transformed from someone doubted and dismissed into a young entrepreneur recognized for his dedication, creativity, and resilience. He had faced skepticism, criticism, and challenges but had emerged stronger and more confident. The acknowledgement from the millionaire, combined with the growing support from others, validated his journey and motivated him to continue reaching higher. The boy understood that the true measure of success was not just recognition or profit, but the ability to overcome doubt, learn from failures, and inspire others along the way. His journey had reached a pivotal moment, opening doors to new opportunities and possibilities, while reinforcing the lessons that had carried him this far. The boy's journey had reached a point where he could look back and see the long path he had traveled. From the early days of doubt, fear, and criticism, he had grown into someone who had not only built a successful product but had also developed a sense of purpose, confidence, and leadership. He had learned lessons that money could not buy, lessons about patience, resilience, and the value of persistence. With his product gaining recognition in the city and even attracting attention from larger markets, the boy knew it was time to think bigger. He began planning a gradual expansion to reach other towns and regions. He carefully considered the logistics, ensuring that quality would remain high and that each step was sustainable. He learned that growth was not just about making more money or increasing visibility. It was about maintaining the integrity of the idea and the trust of the people who supported him from the start. The boy also started mentoring other young people who had ideas but lacked guidance. He shared his story openly, speaking about the early struggles, failures, and the moments when he wanted to give up. He emphasized that doubt and criticism were normal and that they could be turned into motivation rather than fear. The children and teenagers he spoke to were inspired, seeing that success was not reserved for the privileged or the naturally talented, but for those willing to work hard and persevere. As the business grew, the boy continued to face new challenges. Managing production, dealing with unexpected problems, and making decisions about partnerships were all part of the learning curve. He discovered that leadership required more than giving instructions. It required listening, understanding, and helping others perform their best. He treated his small team with respect and care, teaching them the values he held dear. The boy realized that people were more willing to follow someone who demonstrated fairness, honesty, and dedication. One day, the millionaire who had doubted him reached out again, this time with a different tone. The millionaire had been following the boy's progress and wanted to meet him once more. The boy felt a mixture of emotions, curiosity, pride, and a little nervousness, but he was ready. When they met, the millionaire expressed admiration for the boy's persistence, growth, and achievements. He acknowledged that the initial doubt had been unfounded and that the boy had proven himself beyond expectations. The boy felt satisfied, not because of recognition, but because the acknowledgement symbolized the journey he had endured and the lessons he had internalized. With this acknowledgement, the boy's story began to inspire even more people. Local media, social networks, and community events highlighted his journey. Parents brought their children to hear him speak, and young entrepreneurs sought his advice. The boy understood that his story had become a symbol of hope and determination. He felt a responsibility to use his experience to encourage others, to show that hard work, creativity, and resilience could overcome doubt and obstacles. The boy's family watched him with pride, seeing not just the success but the growth in character and maturity. They reflected on how far he had come from the small town where he had first dreamed of creating something meaningful. The boy never forgot the support, love, and encouragement he had received from his family. He often said that their belief in him had been one of the greatest gifts, giving him the strength to continue when things were difficult. He shared small joys and milestones with them, understanding that success was even sweeter when celebrated with those who had supported him from the beginning. As time went on, the boy began to see the larger impact of his work. His product was helping people in meaningful ways, improving their daily lives and even inspiring them to pursue their own ideas. He realized that success was not just about personal achievement but about creating value for others. This understanding motivated him to keep growing, improving, and finding new ways to contribute positively to the world. The boy also faced moments of doubt and fear along the way. Expansion brought new risks, and not every idea worked as expected. Sometimes mistakes were costly, and sometimes people questioned his decisions. But he had learned from experience that setbacks were part of the journey. Each time he reflected on the lessons, adjusted his strategies, and continued forward. The boy knew that resilience was not about avoiding failure but about learning and growing from it. He also found joy in sharing his knowledge and experience. He started workshops for young entrepreneurs, teaching them practical skills, encouraging creative thinking, and emphasizing the importance of persistence. The boy understood that guiding others was not just about sharing knowledge but also about instilling confidence, helping them believe in their potential, and showing them that obstacles could be overcome with effort and dedication. The young people he worked with were motivated, inspired by the fact that someone close to their age had achieved success through hard work. Over time, the boy's business continued to expand responsibly. He opened small branches in nearby towns, ensuring that the quality and principles of his original product were maintained. He hired staff carefully, trained them well, and encouraged them to grow with the company. The boy had learned that long-term success required patience, planning, and attention to detail. Every decision he made reflected his commitment to integrity and the values that had guided him since the beginning. The boy also continued to improve himself. He read books, attended workshops, and sought advice from experienced mentors. He understood that personal growth was as important as business growth. He learned to manage stress, make thoughtful decisions, and maintain a balance between work, family, and personal life. The boy realized that true success was holistic. It included achievements, personal development, and positive impact on others. One day, as he reflected on his journey, the boy realized how far he had come from the small, uncertain steps he had taken months ago. The millionaire's doubt, once so painful, had become a symbol of the challenges he had overcome. Every failure, mistake, and sleepless night had contributed to his growth. He understood that success was not instant and that the journey itself, with its struggles and lessons, was more valuable than any immediate reward. The boy also began to give back to his community in meaningful ways. He supported local schools, funded small projects for children, and encouraged creativity and entrepreneurship among young people. He understood that the journey was not just about personal achievement but also about creating opportunities and inspiring others. His work began to make a difference beyond his business, touching lives and motivating dreams. In the end, the boy's story became one of perseverance, resilience, and inspiration. From the moment the millionaire doubted him to the time he stood recognized and respected, he had shown that belief in oneself, dedication, and learning from every experience could overcome any obstacle. His journey inspired many, proving that obstacles and criticism could be transformed into motivation, and that hard work and honesty could lead to meaningful success. The boy had achieved his dreams not by avoiding challenges but by facing them head-on. He had learned the value of persistence, the importance of community, and the power of self-belief. His journey showed that real success was measured not just by wealth or recognition but by the impact one had on others, the lessons learned, and the growth of character along the way. He had turned doubt into determination, criticism into motivation, and a simple idea into a story that would inspire others for years to come.